Sullivan joins us, former political director to Keir Starmer, now at the Headland Consultancy. But we go first to Angela Madden, chair of Women Against State Pension Inequality, WASPI Women, in other words. And Angela, your reaction to the idea that even if you'd been sent a letter, you probably wouldn't have read it?
I'm not sure I could actually say it out loud on radio, Jeremy. It just shows the contempt that the Secretary of State has for women my age.
Take me through.
I'm a woman with 2 degrees.
Yeah.
I held a full-time job most of my working life. I did choose to retire before I received my state pension because of the misinformation from the DWP. And I still have every letter that they sent me, and I read them and I recall them. I got a letter from them in 2005 that was unsolicited. It was an unsolicited pensions forecast. I found that letter very helpful. It was 10 years after they raised the state pension age, yet nowhere in that letter did they say that my state pension age was rising.
So in 2005, do you mind just telling me roughly what age you were? In your 50s, I guess?
I was born in 54. So,
okay, so you were 59 then. So you were approaching the moment you would have expected your pension. But at what point did you discover then that it was the age had moved away from you?
Well, I discovered in 2005 what I would have been about 49, 54 I was born anyway. I got a letter in 2012 from the government. And again, I read that one and I recall that one too. And I still have that one. And it told me that I would receive my state pension age in 2020. And I had been expecting it on my 60th birthday in 2014.
Yeah. Okay, so for age 66, in other words, in 2020, you're age 66. And that's the point, Luke Sullivan. It's that the actual business of giving information to the women affected was so sloppy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, look, I'll start by saying every time I've been on and discussed the issue of WASPI, I get very angry texts, both from my mum and my auntie. So I do recognise how sensitive an issue this is and that there are people who have been seriously affected by this. But I think the decision yesterday was about a very specific issue. It was about whether the government had, whether people knew about whether or not they had the information about their state pension changing. And I think the arguments that the government have made, whilst I know are very difficult and hard for some people to hear, and there are cases where people have got letters that they were sent, I think the price tag of up to £10 billion to reimburse, to compensate people is just simply something the country can't afford at this time. And I know that's a difficult message to hear.
Angela?
I think can't afford is an interesting concept. I mean, I wonder why, as taxpayers, we have been funding an independent parliamentary and health service ombudsman all these years. That office was set up to protect us, the citizens, from harm from government departments. It made a decision after a 6-year investigation that said they didn't inform us. That was injustice and it caused us harm, and that harm was converted according to a scale that is used for all these issues to convert it into a monetary sum.
But Angela,
we've ignored that. So that's where the money's being wasted, because the government makes a sham of the democratic process here.
Understood. I was going to say the point that Mr. McFadden was making, probably not particularly well, was that if you identify the lack of communication and you say that needs compensating, you then have to do this very tricky job of finding out who didn't get a letter and who didn't open their letter, and you basically have to do a kind of detective work with historical information that would take half a department to do.
Yeah, so you blame the victims and try and move on, because the information Mr. McFadden is using we already think is unlawful. And we are working with our solicitors again after believing Mr. McFadden was going to take an open look at the thing, because that's what he said. He even put it in a court order. But he came up with exactly the same answer. So, you know, we have to look at that again, because we're supposed to live in a democracy. The Ombudsman knew Mr. McFadden, the DWP, was not going to accept his recommendations. So they put the report before Parliament. but the government haven't allowed Parliament to have a vote either. And do you know why? Because they know they'd lose it.
Luke Sullivan, just on to Keir Starmer's position. If he campaigned for the election on the basis that he was going to right this wrong, and then when he got into office, he changed his mind. Now, that is just one of these barefaced, I won't call it lies, but it's a bit of politics that really leaves a nasty taste, because there will be WASPI women who voted for Keir Starmer, your boss, thinking he would sort this out.
Well, I think what is fair to say is that I think politicians of all stripes have made promises and pledges to the WASPI women, which I think, in all honesty, were never able to be made.
That's a very weird justification, Luke. That's the idea that it's okay if I can lie if everyone else is.
No, and that's not the point I'm making. I mean, I think it's clear. I think it's fair to make the point clear that the Labour Party didn't run in its manifesto at the election in 2024 that elected Keir Starmer as the Prime Minister with a promise and the pledge to right the wrongs on WASPI women. That was not in the Labour manifesto.
He marched with them. He marched next to their placards.
And this refers to previous manifesto commitments that the Labour Party and other parties stood on. And I think the Labour Party has changed its position.
Yeah.
That was difficult. But that was not the position that they stood on at this election. Now, I think it's fair to ask politicians why they've changed their positions. I think the honest answer to this is that the simple cost of some of the recompense that WASPI women want is just simply not affordable in this time and age.
Well, but he could have said that before the election, before the WASPI women voted for him.
Well, I think the point I'm making is that he did make that clear at the election through the manifesto, through being asked what his position was at the election in 2024. They did not stand on the platform of making the promises to the WASPI women. Is that
right, Angela, that Keir Starmer never said he'd sort this out?
Well, no, we don't believe that's right. The Labour Party generally has always supported our cause. Keir Starmer has never said he wouldn't. The only things that were named in the manifesto were the things that Rishi Sunak had put through Parliament, the Horizon scandal and the infected blood scandal. Ours had never got to Parliament yet, so Parliament has never discussed this. So this government is acting in a very undemocratic way.
Okay,
and we believe what should happen is the decision should go to Parliament, and that's what the Ombudsman said as well. But they're ignoring their own watchdog.
I'm confused now, because I did see Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves standing alongside the placard saying justice for the WASPI women. Let me just... Yeah. This is the moment when Keir Starmer's on a radio show and a WASPI woman called Carol is called. Let's just play this again and really pay attention now.
All your working life, you've got in mind the date on which you can retire and get your pension. And then just as you get towards it, the goalposts are moved and you don't get it. And it's a real injustice. And we need to do something about it, Carol, because that wasn't the base upon which you paid in. That wasn't the basis upon which you were working. We've got a government that has basically put its fingers in its ears.
So, Luke, the government, by doing exactly what Keir Starmer's government is doing now, had their fingers in their ears?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know when that clip was from.
2022.
Yeah, and I think the government do understand the strength of feeling, and I think it came through in the statement where some of the points were put to Pat McFadden yesterday in the Commons. But I think ultimately what the Labour Party, what the Labour government position is that, yes, we recognise that there are a very big group of women who feel very harshly done by, but that the government aren't in a position to compensate them. That there's a whole host of other things they're doing. There is the triple lock. I know that isn't necessarily the same for everybody, but there is the triple lock for pensioners. That pensioners' incomes have increased. I think will increase by about £2,000 in this Parliament. And, there is a simple thing that, the government has a responsibility to all taxpayers, not just pensioners.
Thank you very, very much indeed for coming on. Luke Sullivan, former political director to Keir Starmer, now at the Headland Consultancy, and also Angela Madden, who's chair of the WASPI Women. I wonder what you think of that they've